we will go ahead and jump into the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I hope you guys are excited. We have a really incredible event tonight. We're joined by quite a few guests who I will introduce very shortly to talk about their new work, The Last Kids on Earth, The Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse, a standalone graphic novel in the world of Last Kids on Earth. And let me go ahead and introduce. We have joining us the author, Max Brallier. He is a New York Times, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal bestselling author. His books and series include Last Kids on Earth, Eerie Elementary, Mr. Shivers, Galactic Hot Dogs, and Can You Survive the Zombie Apocalypse? He is the writer and producer for Netflix's Emmy award-winning adaptation of The Last Kids on Earth, and he lives in Los Angeles with his wife and daughter. We are also joined by Anoosha Syed. She is a Pakistani-Canadian illustrator and character designer for animation. She is the illustrator for the APALA honor book, Bilal Cook's Doll. She is also the illustrator for I Am Perfectly Designed by Karamo Brown and Jason Rachel Brown. She's worked with Google, Netflix, DreamWorks, Disney Junior. She hosts a YouTube channel about art education, which I need to check out. She has a passion for creating charming characters and an emphasis on diversity and inclusion. And she lives in Toronto with her husband. And you can find her on Twitter and Instagram at Foxville_art. And we also are joined by Jay Cooper. He is a longtime graphic designer of books and theatrical advertising. He has worked on more than 100 Broadway musicals and plays. Nothing makes him happier than writing and illustrated stories for kids, though. He is the author and illustrator of both The Spy Next Door and the Pepper Party series from Scholastic, and he is illustrating an upcoming graphic novel series, Super Atomic Wombat Girl, releasing in 2022. He lives with his wife and children in New Jersey, and you can find him on Twitter at JCooperArt. And then finally, we're joined by Christopher Mitten. He is originally from the cow-dappled expanse of southern Wisconsin, but he now spends his time roaming the misty wilds of suburban Chicago, drawing little people in little boxes. Chris has worked and contributed for Dark Horse, DC Comics, Oni Press, Vertigo, Image Comics, Marvel Comics, IDW, Gallery Books, Titan Comics, and many, many more. He can be found on Instagram and Twitter at Chris Mitten. All right. Welcome, everybody. How are y'all doing today?
Great. Yeah, this is fun to do. Thank you so much.
All right. So since we're here to talk about the book, we will jump right in, and we will start with actually I have a question for you, Max. Obviously, this is the newest entry in your ongoing series. What was it like working with a host of new illustrators on something like fresh like this? Because obviously all of your books have included a great deal of illustration, so you must have been doing this for a while, but what was different about this? What was the big change?
It was just an absolute nightmare working with other illustrators. No, it was really fun and different and exciting for a bunch of reasons. I think that the concept in the beginning were like, okay, we'll do a collection of sort of short comics, and we'll have different illustrators do it. So all these new different takes on the characters and different looks that sort of fit the different tones of the story. It'll be really fun. And it was really like, it was very fun and exciting the whole way. Then once the art started to come in, and I was like, oh wow, like we're gonna see this comic next to this comic next to this comic. It was just like mind-blowingly cool. Especially because everybody's style was so different, but then still like in the collection, it's like I only got my copies just recently, like 2 days ago, and I was like finally able to like really look at it and hold it, and it looks just incredible. It's like I don't know, it was very exciting. It was a really fun process.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, for everybody, hopefully everybody has their copy already or will soon, but that is one of the most remarkable things about it is all the different art styles at play. So I guess I'll say for the illustrators, what brought you to the Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse project? Like, how did you get involved? We'll start with Jay.
Oh, well, okay. So the story that I illustrate, which is from Quinn's point of view, is kind of in the vernacular of an old school classic comic book. Not like a cool like Mike Mignola Hellboy comic book that Chris might illustrate, but like old school, like Captain Carrot and His Amazing Zoo Crew, like Teen Titans 19, like the classics. And the AD Jim Hoover, we grew up in the same town. I was the comic book guy. I worked at the comic book store, and he used to come in, and he was like the slightly younger guy that I would like look down upon. And so, we ended up in New York City, in our various capacities. And he knew that I understood that visual vernacular kind of innately, and Max is a great way of writing to that vernacular directly. So it sort of seemed like a good fit in that way.
All right. Anoosha, what about you?
Yeah, sure. So if you guys don't know, I'm primarily a picture book illustrator. Like all of my stuff is very much preschool, cute, cute, cute. And so originally when I was thought of for this project and I was approached for it, I was like, I don't know. Like I've never worked on a graphic novel before. This seems like I hadn't really heard of the series before. So the only thing I knew about it was that it had zombies, and I thought like I cannot do this. But Jim, the art director, he showed me the story, and it's about Globlet, who is like this cute, pink, sassy little monster. And I was like, you know what? I love her. I've never done comics before, but I'm going to try this out. And I absolutely loved working on this.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I'd worked with Max twice prior on not very family friendly sort of stuff, and I was always had a really good time working with him. And then the editor Jim Hoover got in contact with me and asked if I wanted to be a part of this, and I jumped at it, yes, because of Max, but also too, it's such a fun thing for me. I don't get to do sort of all ages stories a lot, it's so on a few levels, it was a lot of fun just to kind of draw what I draw, but not really, just kind of like have a little more fun with it, soften up the edges. And I had a lot of fun just exploring, stuff where, there's not, always a zombie or a vampire or whatever coming at you. This was kind of that same universe, but softer and just fun. It's just fun, and it's exactly what I'd hoped it would be. And back to, I am, from ages from 16 to 21. I too worked at a comic book store, so I know that sort of vibe. So but it's just that thing of, it was just a lot of fun. It's exactly I'm getting tripped up. Either I had too much coffee or too little. But it was just fun. It was fun to work with Jim and Max, and it was fun to be part of this whole thing. It was just exactly what I'd hoped it would be. So.
Awesome. Well, that's very cool. Let's see. You guys touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about, you all have very unique art styles. And I want to talk about like how you went about adapting your art style for a character with such this established design and this personality that already exists. Like what was your process for saying like, okay, I'm going to take this character and insert it into my kind of vibe? Let's start with Anoosha on this one.
Yeah, so like I said, picture book illustrator, very, very cute. So Globlet herself is a cute character, so I didn't have too much trouble with that. But the world that we're in The Last Kids on Earth, there are a lot of gross looking monsters. Especially there's this one character called, I think his name is Chef.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I saw that I had to do like a couple of frames of him, I was like, I can't do this. Like this is not something I'm used to. So it was definitely it was a really fun experience because I got to like get out of my comfort zone and draw monsters and things like that. So that was one thing. The other thing is, as a picture book illustrator, the books that I work on, they are like maybe 30 pages max, and you have a lot of time and can put in a lot of detail in pages. Whereas when you're working on a comic book, one page has like 5, 6, 7 of these little frames in them. So you aren't able to put in as much detail and time as you'd like to be able to for every single frame. And so as a perfectionist, I had to try to get out of my the usual thing that I do of like trying to make every frame look perfect, which in the amount of time you have, you can't really do. But I think I was able to make it work somehow. And by the end of it, I think I'm happy with how it turned out.
It's also
Yeah.
partly my fault because I always put way too many frames on a page. I'm like,
That's all good.
I'm like the 13 pages on this frame, 13 panels on this page. And in this piece of action, the character jumps out of their chair while also landing in another place. And that's all in one frame, please. And I'm bad at that.
Chris, let's hear from you on this one.
No, and that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of the thing is you sort of find your character and how you want to do it as you draw, because you do have to hit a certain speed. You have to not being a perfectionist, which is terrible for me because I am, and that's one of those first things I learned, gosh, almost 18, 20, yeah, oh gosh, 18 years ago. I'm old. When I started doing comics. Yeah, because like when I had, like when I was trying to do them at first, I had all the time in the world, but then when you get the job, it's like, oh, you have to do that, but really fast now. So, and like, it until it hits and then you have to go. So there's that kind of process of finding your own style at that speed. So you have to learn to let stuff go. And that's hard. But kind of with every story, be it, be it here with Max and Dirk and the character, or like something, be it Hellboy or Batman, stuff like that, that are kind of very specific known entities, is in a way you have to put all of it out of your head and just draw it as hard as it just, for some reason, like I've been hired, apparently, they want me to draw like me. So just take that breath, which I'm not doing now, and just draw. But it always takes about half the comic. It doesn't matter if it's 3 pages long, 22 pages, or 100 and something pages. It'll take you about half that time to find your character and how you're drawing them. And inevitably, like the last few pages, that's when you're like, I nailed it, finally. And then you're like, oh, it's done. It's done. Now that's it. So yeah, it's a constant process of trying to find it. And then when you find it, you realize, oh, this is the last page or two. Okay, I'm good with that. So
yeah, it's kind of like we're like character actors in a way. Like, there's like these actors that that Daniel Day-Lewis can do anything, Actually, so I do a lot of graphic design, and I talk to illustrators and graphic designers when I describe what we do in a different way, because graphic designers they have to sort of be able to like do a lot of different voices so that they can design to whatever the product is, whatever that thing is. If that's like a off-brand soda label that might be sponsoring a thing, or if it's like a Broadway show, there's a specific visual voice you have to find. With an illustrator, you spend your time finding your own voice. So adapting your voice is always a little bit hard. And when you're doing something in a short amount of time, it's a lot of work. You sort of fall into the trap of doing your thing no matter what anyway. But Chris, you mentioned that you had to like loosen up your style and go a little bit softer than you normally go. See, for me, I had to like tighten it up a little bit because my stuff's a little bit, I thought my stuff was a little bit too sloppy for what Quint would do if he was drawing a comic book. Because that was again, it was in the voice of him. He was the one drawing it, so I kind of had to do it like that. But I will say that specifically to like designing the characters and how you go about that process, I mean, we're very aware that Doug Holgate's character designs are just such an embedded part of this wonderful universe. So it's like, all right, so how am I going to take Doug's character designs and make them instantly recognizable? You want to see somebody open up the book, no matter where they open it up, and say, oh, that's Jack, oh, that's Dirk, oh, that's Quint, that's June, but still kind of make it, enough of your own voice. So it's sort of, there was a little bit of experimentation. I think that I personally probably went through about 10 pages of just drawing those characters over and over until I find a point where it was like, oh, this feels a little bit like if Quint was at 10% Simpsons and, and 50% Doug Holgate and 40% like Little Nancy or whatever, and that's like, and that felt like the right kind of, you know, gumbo for that illustrative style.
And Jay, like yours has like the added challenge or whatever of like it has to be like look like it's drawn by a kid, but better. You know what I mean? Like whenever it's supposed to look like I hate like whenever I see like a movie, it's like, oh, my daughter drew a piece of art and it's like clearly not drawn by a kid or something. You know what I mean? So like there's such a balance to find. Like whenever I look at like Dog Man or like anything where it's like a comic done by, like the conceit is that it's like done by a kid. I think it's like a weird line to walk, and I don't know, and it came out perfectly, which is amazing. But yeah, it's just so like it's like, oh, it's so fun to look at for anybody and read, but like you believe that like Quint would have drawn this himself and made it himself, and so I think I remember like thinking about that going into it. I was like, oh, it's gotta look like it's done by a kid, but still be like feel like this and this and this, and it came out wonderfully.
Cool. Well then, you guys touched on this a little bit there, but I do want to ask, like, what are y'all's sources of feedback in your lives? Like, who's the first person that sees your work when you're writing it? Is it family? Is it someone like that? And this is for everybody when you're writing it or when you're illustrating. Like, what is your person in your life who like you show it to and you're like, you just need them to tell you that it's good. You know what I mean? You're just like, hey, you know, help me get over myself with this one. Max.
Oh, I wish I had like a. This is now it sounds. Now I feel lonely and sad. It's my editor.
That's a good person for it to be. That's a good thing that it's your.
No one in my life wants anything to do with what I'm working on. I for a long time it was like my dad would read things that I wrote because he does some writing and he's a very good sort of judge of things, I think. But now it's, as we've gotten further into this series, I think it's also harder. This book a little bit aside, but like with Last Kids, like it's now like I'm doing book 8, and you can't really jump into it without sort of knowing what happened in the previous book, and you know, it pick up on a cliffhanger, and they're like, who's this bad guy, and he's trying to do what? It's like, you know, if you ask somebody to like cold read a random episode of like Game 5, like season 5, like Game of Thrones, they'd be like, I have no idea what's happening here. So it's my editor, and then I have a couple of friends who work on the Last Kids Netflix show. So they know the world very well and the voices and things like that. So I will have them sometimes read and definitely sometimes help when I'm like, I'm really stuck on a punchline. This gag is not funny. You guys are much funnier than me. Can you throw something at me? And then I'll take that and never give them any credit. Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. Anoosha, what about you?
I'm kind of in the same boat where I don't really have anyone who can give me like solid critique apart from like art director, editor, whatever. But if I do want just like happy critique, I'll show it to my husband. I'll be like, here, I made this thing, and he'll be like, oh my God, it's amazing. I love it. Which is great. But like sometimes you do need like a little bit of feedback. He's not the best person for that because he's not an artist. He's an accountant. But if I do need like actual critique, then it would be my boss, art director. Yeah.
Jay, what about you? If you guys have anything for this, you don't have to, you know.
Yeah, actually, and I want to follow up with something Max said, because there are so many jokes. There's so many funny jokes in this book. Specific, like I feel like this has got 50% more jokes in it than the normal books.
And especially your story is particularly goofy.
It's a lot more meta too. Like it's really self-referential, and it's almost like you even in that first title page where it says, "Oh, this is 3D," all of a sudden you realize that you set it up that you're breaking the rule of like the normal Last Kids world that we're normally in. And I wanted to ask you about that, but that's aside from, I'm going off the rails here like I normally do. If I'm writing a story, because I do write too. My wife is an editor and a writer, so she always looks over my work first. And then if it's an illustration and I'm feeling extremely not confident about it, I'll send it to one or two friends. Actually, one of which is Jim Hoover, the AD on the series, and he'll help me sort of give me a couple, you know, pointers back, or sometimes just a, hey, that looks great, and that's all I need to hear sometimes.
I want somebody, I'll send it to my mom, and she'll just be like, it's the best thing I've ever seen. And that's like all I wanted to hear. I didn't want any honest feedback. I just wanted someone to help me sleep that night.
No, honest feedback is overrated. You want
Yeah.
mom's opinion. I still, like I'll send stuff to my mom too. It's like, oh, that's
Look what I made.
yeah, oh, that's great. Like, thanks, mom. Hopefully the editors and everyone else will feel the same. So, but yeah, I'm in the same boat as everyone else. It's pretty much the editors, and yeah, when you get that kind of thumbs up or even, like occasional little tweaks, you're like, oh, actually that makes sense. I didn't think of it that way. And I think some of that is just because A, you're so close to it, you're in your head, but two, especially in comics too, you're so close, and also just you kind of have to work so fast with it, you might not think of a thing, and usually it's not a major thing, but like, oh, what if you flip the scene this way, do it, then you're like, oh yeah, that makes more sense, not just in terms of it'll look better, but in terms of how, because you do have to keep in mind, like where you have to place the balloons and if that reads right and everything. So there's all these little things you have to sort of keep in mind. You're like, is there enough room for the balloons? How you stage the scene for the balloons? But yeah, it's basically me, and it's just me, and I send it out to a smattering of editors, and occasionally, like everyone else too, it's you have a couple trusted friends too. If you're really not sure, you can kind of throw it up to get the honest critique. But usually it's just the editors, and at this point it's very helpful and they're very honest, and I've been working with a lot of them long enough where it's just a very comfortable thing where it's you trust them you just trust them, and you're like, okay, I wouldn't have thought of that, but I think that's right. It's one of those sort of moments you're like, that's a good note, as opposed to being noted to death where you're like, I don't know.
I'll curl in my closet now.
Yeah. So
Anoosha, I'm always here. Send me anything, and I will be happily look at it.
Deal.
Yeah. You can leave your husband.
Fantastic.
Well, to kind of pick up Jay's thread there, what was it like getting to kind of do something different? Because obviously you've been, you read a lot of books. Like I was like going over the publication list and realizing I'm like, wow, he put out 2 books. You put out 2 books last year. Like what, and you're doing, obviously you're working on the Netflix series, which has been hugely successful. What was it like getting to do something off the beaten? Like I know June's book was another kind of a break from the traditional thing, but even that was kind of in the vein of the regular thing. What was it like to get to just cut loose?
It was it was oh boy, okay, so it should have been really fun. I found it really hard to write over the past year. I was really struggling to get anything done. Just because logistically, I can't work at home, so I do all my writing in coffee shops, or like bars and stuff. Like honestly, like I really struggled working at home. And so like it started out like, this is gonna be also great. I'm banging this thing out in like a month and blah 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 blah. And like 9 months later, I'm like, I can't even put down a word on this thing. So it was hard. I think doing it again, I would love to do something like this again. Because it was really the funnest part for me was like, oh, we can just kind of do anything here. It's like a really, it's not like canon for the last story. It's like you can just really, the characters will be weird. They're sort of like telling tall tales. Like it's built in that the stories are going to be exaggerated to a certain extent. They're going to feel different. Chris's story feels like hopefully feels like an old Western, and so they're all sort of different, and it was just like a great, like any idea. It's sort of like the new Netflix special came out, which is for the show, which is like an interactive, like a choose your own adventure style thing, which is really fun because it was like the one where you could do anything. Like the characters can die, they can get zombified, they can get eaten by monsters, they go to space, like all this ridiculous stuff. And that's sort of what this book was like. Yeah, if there wasn't a pandemic, it would have been amazing.
Well, yeah, you made it work. I think you definitely pulled it off.
I said you made it worse. It's like, I hope I'm wearing a mask. What the hell?
No. I think it. If your illustrators tell you how funny it is, I think you've done a good job.
It's so
Um,
literally 3,000 jokes per like chapter. It's
A
insane.
lot of those are.
Insane
Some of the,
amount of jokes.
I was flipping through the book and this and this happens every single time. The best jokes are Jim Hoover's. Like he wrote the 3D glasses thing. He always does the stuff up front, and Jim Hoover's the art designer, art director, and I spend months and months writing these things and texting my friends, is this joke funny? And then like Jim's like, and then like I'm like, that's the best joke in the whole thing.
Okay, well then we'll do a kind of a fun question here. If you were a last kid, which one would you be? We'll start with let's take some heat off Max. We'll start with Jay.
Okay, so all right, because you sent us these questions ahead of time, so just so you all know out there watching this,
don't pull back the curtain too far.
At least a couple hours. So I've given this question some thought. So wait, so the question is, is which actual last kid I would be, or which kid I'm most like?
I think it's which last kid would you be? I don't know. However you wish to interpret that, I think is the best way to answer this.
Okay, if I was a last kid, I wouldn't be a last kid at all. I'd be Johnny Steve. There's something I love him so much. He's my favorite. That's right. That's how you say his name, right? Johnny Steve. I always think it's like Stevie John. Johnny Stevie.
John. I flipped it at the very end. Yeah. He created his name from looking at a phone book.
I love him. I love him so much. So he's the one I most like. But the one that I like the most, and the one I would most want to be, is the one that I'm least like, which is Dirk Savage. And the reason I would love to be him is because I have a real affinity for characters that start off as the seeming bad guy, but then once you contextualize the reason that they are the way that they are, you get a little bit of sense of more of a depth of like what's happened in their life that makes them who they are, and then you get that new perspective, and they become good. You're like, oh, I will die for this character. I will go all the way for this character. And much like Hawkeye was a villain when he first appeared in Tales of Suspense 57. So, there's some real love there for Dirk for me.
That was actually the inspiration for Dirk.
What?
That was the inspiration for Dirk. Tales of Suspense 57. That's where Dirk. That's where the idea for Dirk came from.
You're lying.
I would be Dirk as well, because for not a much less deep reason, I feel like Dirk has probably been like punched in the face one time and like shook it off, and I would like that'd be cool to be able to happen. I've never, yeah, I would like to be like tough for one day.
Christopher?
Honestly, again, I'm going to sound like I'm parroting everyone, but I think there's a lot to what everyone said about Dirk. There is that thing of just like, it's so not me. I am so one of those things, but he has that sort of like, he's kind of got it covered in his head. It's one of those things where it's like, he knows who he is. It's just, he's kind of at peace with that. And that's, it's a very admirable trait, and one I don't believe I have. Although I do have a giant bug. It's one of those things, but
Yeah.
everything else not at all like me, but the giant bug, yes.
Anoosha, would you also like to be Dirk, or
Left out now. I would like to be Dirk, but I think I'm more of a Quint. Well, I mean, like, if anything, if I was in the Last Kids universe, I would not be alive. I would have been like off very early on. I do not have like survivor skills whatsoever. I'm afraid of heights. I don't like fast cars. Like I can't deal with it. But I would consider myself, I guess, like the smart one. Maybe not. I don't know math. I don't know science, but I think I could probably fashion out like a MacGyver or something. So yeah, I will say Quint, but I would, just to fit in, I will say Dirk as well.
I'm reading the Expanse series right now, and I got like, really sucked into it. Like I was reading it, I started working on I was finishing book 7, and I was like, I need like ways to take breaks and relax. And like, so I was like listening to it on audiobook, and like it's perfect because the narrator is one of those narrators where you can get up to like 3x the speed and like still everything is clear. So like I was, and like halfway through the series, I was at the end of book 7, and I realized that I was like I would write and then like go do like some stuff around the house and listen to the book and come back and write. And like I was writing Dirk as if he was Amos from The Expanse. Like his dialogue is just like this tough, like it sort of is. I was like, oh, it's kind of like similar character. But then like by the end of book 7, he was just like, we'll just kill them all. That's the plan, I guess. And like, so that's neither here nor there, except for it's about Dirk, and that The Expanse series is really good.
Wait, I want to know which book you're on right now.
I'm about to finish Babylon's Ashes, I think. Yeah. The next one I have, I know that there's a time jump. I know that that's
Wait,
happening.
is that book 5? Are you on the end of book 5?
I'm at the end of book 5 or 6. I don't have physical copies.
Are they on the planet?
They Marcus just went through the thing and some weird stuff happened.
Okay, I am just at the end of book 5, and I love that series.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
really,
this
really
big
What-
advertisement for
I think I might be on. I think I'm on. Yeah, I forget. It's either 5 or 6. Yeah, yeah.
We'll keep the chat up after. We can all talk about these because I want to jump into. We'll kind of springboard off of that actually. And what is anybody reading anything incredible? Just so, as a general bookstore event question, what are people reading? What are you doing right now? What's your inspirational thing that you're into right now? Anoosha.
You're gonna be so disappointed in me. I haven't read a book in like 4 years.
What? I don't read my.
Well, you're an artist.
Apart from the
work
books
read
that
author.
I'm trying to like illustrate, I haven't really read a book in a while. I just don't have the time for it. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but the last book series I read was the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I like fantasy. That was really great. I read a couple of graphic novels here and there, but I don't know. Would you count that as like reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. That's what. Yeah, reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What did I read? I read the Scott Pilgrim series kind of recently. Really enjoyed that. And
It's getting its big re-release soon. It's exciting.
ooh, yeah. Awesome.
Good deal. All right, Chris, what about you?
I just finished reading Matt Haig's Midnight Library, and a nonfiction book called The Dinosaur Artist, which I really, really liked. It's and yeah, like I have a few books going all at once. Sometimes there's a comic in there, but sometimes it's at the end of the day. My brain can't stop seeing lines and all the work that went into the comic book. So it's like I can blow through a novel or something like that in a couple of days. It'll take me a week to read like like a 100-page comic because my brain cannot just so much work went into these. And you're just overthinking it. But yeah, I've got, what do I have on deck? Oh gosh, the thing about, I just blanked on the title, but The Making of Chinatown and I'm
listening to that right now. It's good.
Yeah. So yeah, I have my stack of books by my bed, which I keep reading, and it never goes down because I keep telling myself I will read half of this and then buy more stuff, and I don't. I just keep buying and not reading fast enough. So yeah, I have a bunch of stuff, and it'll eventually get read. So.
Yeah. We all know that feeling. Yeah, I know that feeling. Jay, what about you?
Chris, with your style, I would have thought you've been like, I just read the Dunwich Horror for the 5th time.
It's weird. I'm not a big horror guy.
Out of space again. No, I'm as I said, I've been working on The Expanse. I will say that all throughout the thing that I really read a lot of last year, as Max is saying, it was so hard kind of getting through the year. I think that for everybody and everybody out there, and I hope everyone's doing well out there and continuing to do well. And I think we can see the light at the end of the tunnel now, which is great. But I kind of fell into the the candy mode, right? I needed something that was just comfort food, and I went through. I didn't make it all the way through, but I went through the first 12 or 13 books of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. There's something about that series that just, it's so comforting, and just the way that he talks about the world is so wise. And I would be very angry about things, and then I would read a little bit, and he would, something Captain Vimes would say would just be like, okay, okay, all right, I'm calm again. And it would, so that was really, really great. If anybody's stressed out, that's helpful. The thing that I want to get back to and reread is, I'm getting really jazzed. As I said, I'm a big Hawkeye fan. Is the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series from book 1 was just I think the best comic series I think I've ever read my entire life, and I really want to go back and reread that. A couple issues specifically. There's one from the dogs, so Pizza the Dog's perspective, which is like just chef's kiss storytelling, and there's one that's all like half in sign language. It's just fantastic. Oh, and there's one that was about the hurricane. Was it Katrina that took us out of at the New Orleans one? Sandy. There's one about Hurricane Sandy, which is a wonderful story.
And I'm doing the Expanse, and and beyond that, it's mostly stuff that I read with my daughter's 3. So she's gotten into comics, so we read.
Wow.
It was like I sort of like put one there because I was like, I'm getting sick of everything we're reading, and then she was really to Squirrel Girl, reading Squirrel Girl, which I think is like the most brilliant thing ever. Like some of those, it's just really beyond brilliant. And Spider-Gwen, and then I was like really enjoying reading comics again. Like I hadn't read like a good comic in a while, so I was going back, and then so now I'm like catching up on old like Spider-Man stuff I've never read. Like I just read the Spider-Man versus Kraven the Hunter thing. It's like really sort of feels like a Frank Miller wrote Spider-Man. Oh, and then like some picture books. I just read a new book called The Ramble Shamble Children by Christina Soontornvat, who's a friend of mine. But it's really beautiful and wonderful. And that's sort of what we're reading. Oh, and I'm like always reading like these like books for writers, but like the free ones, like the like self-published ones, like a list of like adjectives, because I'm like out of adjectives and stuff. And then I realized that they were all being like publicly shared on my Goodreads, like when I'm reading thing. So I look like a writer who doesn't know anything at all, which I am, but I don't want people to know that. My currently reading is just like 25 adjectives for beginning writers, and like how to write character descriptions of faces for like for like English students or something. That's like, and I was like, oh, these are all public. No, I don't want people knowing that.
You can help other aspiring writers with your list.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. If the audience has anything, please drop it in the Q&A section down there. We can get to a couple of those if we have time. We have one audience question for Max. I think if I hit that question, it pops it up for people to see. So it says, Max, how has your audience changed since the series has started, especially with the wild success of the Netflix show and everything? Like, what has it been like? What has the transformation been like?
I don't know if it's really. It's bigger. The audience is somewhat bigger for sure. It's definitely there's more eyeballs on it, which has then led people to the book series, which is great. I mean, beyond great. I don't know if it's. I feel like the Netflix audience is much more interested in like, when are these hit characters gonna start making out? It's like the question that I get like in like Instagram, like from like random kids on Instagram, like, are they gonna hook up ever? And it's every possible match of the characters wondering when they're gonna hook up. Sometimes with Rover. It's very weird. But that seems to only started once the Netflix series is out there. So I think there's a different community of fans, and also fan art that comes out once you have an animated series. Beyond that, I don't know if it's changed necessarily. I think the way I write has changed. Like Globlet was a character that was created for the series. Like we just sort of happened in like we were playing around the writer's room, and then like I loved her so much that she became a character in the books. Same thing with the chef character that Anoosha hates so much and despises so much. That was good. We created him just because we wanted Bruce Campbell to do something, and then Bruce Campbell voiced the chef. Yeah, so I don't know if it's changed much beyond the when are they going to kiss?
Fair. Oh wait, initials. No. Okay, we will probably end it with this question, or this will be our last question. And it's a simple one. It's pretty straightforward. What was everyone's favorite moment from working on the book, or that they did in the book, or that they participated in, or just that they read? I mean, if it's from your section or not. Like, what was the let's all make Max listen to whatever joke you thought was the funniest, or whatever moment was best for you.
Sure, Jim wrote it. Whatever it was.
Jay, what are you?
Actually, this goes back to way back to the beginning of this whole thing, to what Max was saying about getting the book and actually reading the book. So, but Max wrote it, so he was there the whole process and even seeing all the artwork. But normally for us, we're involved for the whole thing through the whole time. It was really nice to get this and read it, and like, what your part was going to be, but I had no idea what Chris's part was going to be, or I didn't know what Anoosha's chapter is going to be like. And so reading it, I get to experience it like any normal reader would out there, which is something that kind of gets lost when you're creating the work. You kind of you lose that moment of joy of discovering something that's a book that you're in. So I really appreciated that. And actually, and I promise I'm not blowing smoke here, my two favorite moments from the book were actually both in Chris's and Anoosha's chapters relatively, and they were both just really fun, quick little visual surprises. For Chris's, it was when the witch, who looked very much like a Hellboy witch, was all cloaked in shadow, and all of a sudden she's like, "Hey, let's play some horse," and it was just like this. It's this quick, fun shift, which we know that the dark was so clearly Chris's style, and then the brightly lit version of her was so clearly like that's the transformation to this world. And I found that part delightful. And then for Anoosha, it was when Goblet is talking about her dream, and then she talks about mayo, and it's dark, and you just get that noir light across the eyes. It's like, it's a mayo. Stay out of my dreams, mayo. And those two moments were just like, I had me like laughing out loud. I love those parts.
Chris, what about you?
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the book, because I can't wait, because being a part of a book of which you're only some part, you do get to kind of see it with fresh eyes. You get to even look at your own stuff and go, oh, that's right, but it fits different, but it looks and feels different when it's, in everything. But honestly, it was just Max asking me back to do this, because I just really enjoyed lightening up a little bit, because just in terms of style and story, and that basketball bit, that was Max entirely. His, hey, let's play hoops, that was his, and I'm just happy I was able to pull off the gag. That was one of those. But for the past, like I've always wanted to do picture books and do kids books and do stuff. It's just like the stuff I sort of ended up doing took me in a very different, way. So I just jumped at it, because it was a chance to get back and do something so different from what I usually get offered and to do. And it was a chance to get back with Max again. And it was just, the whole thing to me was, it could not have come at a better time. It could not have been a better experience with everyone involved. And I just had so much fun. I just had so much fun with the whole thing. So
very good. Anisha, what about you?
Yeah, so I haven't received my copy yet. Cannot wait to see it. I can't wait to see like everyone else's interpretations of the characters and everything. So I'm really excited about that. My favorite part about working on this was, like everyone has been saying, that like it's really been like getting me out of my comfort zone, and it's just been like something that I've never really worked on before. I've never worked on a graphic novel before. I've never worked on something that had action, but most importantly, I've never worked on something that was genuinely funny. Like script was great, jokes were so good, and like it also gave me the chance to, in the visuals, try to be funny as well, and put in like my own little like side gags and everything. And so I think that I'm a funny person, but I've never really been able to show it, and I think I got the chance to over here. So that was really fun.
The action is great in yours. So
Oh, thank you.
do more action stuff.
I mean, they're all incredible. But yeah. Max, what about you?
I think it was probably. I think it was all very sort of nebulous in my head. Like, is this gonna work? Is this like we're gonna take different art and put it in the same book? And how do we like? Are people gonna go out and they're gonna buy it thinking it's gonna be the same as the old thing, but it's gonna be different, and then they're all gonna be mad at me, and I'm gonna freak out, and I'm just gonna like that's all what my head is. So my favorite moment was like when the colored art first started coming in. I was like, oh wait, this looks amazing and it's gonna work. That was like the like this is like, whoa, this is crazy. This is just incredible, and how different it was. In Anoosha's story, the globosphere, where it's like the galaxy with globules everywhere, and like I was like, this is like just bananas, and like it's so good. And I printed that one out and I put it on my wall, and I was like, okay, this is like, if I ever like feel like doubt about this like book that we're this different thing we're doing, I was like, I looked at that and I was like, oh, this is great. So that was like my that I think when the art started to come in, and it really was just like, oh, this is really this works. That's when the feeling of the fear lowering slightly is my version of favorite.
Awesome. I can relate. Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here. I'll take a quick second to do a little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, if you're at this event, you have a copy of this, or you have a copy on your way to you. But if you want to tell anybody how cool it is, tell them, and then maybe they can check out this event later. And just a couple things. So we have an upcoming event tomorrow as well at 5:30 Central Standard Time, or Central Daylight Time now. It is Brittany Morrison conversation with Angie Thomas for her new book, The Cost of Knowing, young adult novel. It is free to attend and registration is required. So head on over to squarebooks.com and check out our events page to get all of the details about that. And also check out the chat because it has all of the information there as well. And let me thank everybody, Max, Anoosha, Jay, Chris, thank you all for doing this. I had a ton of fun. So it was very, very exciting for me and hopefully for everyone else. Is anybody going to shout out where people can find more of you real quick before we go? Like where do you want them to check you out?
Nobody looking.
Max, I think we all know you're eminently Googleable. Jay, what about you?
jcooperbooks.com.
Okay. Chris.
Yeah, I'm at the wildly inventive ChristopherMitten.com. So
Very good. That's short, sweet, to the point. Anoosha.
I'm AnooshaSyed.com and at Foxville_art on all social media.
Awesome. And then Max.
Max
for posterity.
MaxBrallier.com, but I'm really bad at updating my website. My sister's supposed to do it for me, but she never does it. Instagram, Max Loves Pants.
Where does that come from? Okay, this is
my name.
Okay, last thing. Where does Max Love Pants come from?
That was my Instagram handle in high school when AOL's Messenger thing. That was the big thing. That was where it was, and it just stuck around. Even though now I'm in California, I wear shorts more than pants. It's still Max Loves Pants.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys for presenting. We're going to go ahead and end the broadcast now. We hope you all had a great time, and be sure to check these guys out. And again, if you haven't already gotten it, get it. Square Books.